Hello, hello. I am coming by to talk to you about not believing everything you think. And I apologize if my voice is a little quieter than usual. I have a baby sleeping in the next room, so I don't want to jeopardize that, even though obviously this is deeply important that I express this to you right now. So, all right, I said in a recent post that just because you think something doesn't mean that it's true. And this is one of those ideas that we need to remind ourselves of frequently, because so often our unhappiness, our confusion, our sense of I don't know what next step to take or decision to make is coming from a place of believing thoughts that don't work for us. And you can think of your thoughts like secondhand clothing. If I love thrift shopping. I used to do a ton of thrift shopping. I grew up on wearing thrift clothes, and I still do a ton of thrift shopping. And when you are choosing to wear clothes that are secondhand, it's important that you pick the clothes that you like. It's important that you cull through the clothes. You wouldn't just walk into a thrift shop and be like, well, this pair of jeans and this shirt, and if they don't fit me, then I'm going to blame myself, or I'm going to think there's something wrong with my body, or if it's not my style, I'm going to think I guess I'm a piece of garbage because I don't like the way this looks on my body, but I have to wear it. Oftentimes the thoughts we're thinking are secondhand. They were just handed to us by society, by media, by family stories, habits that our parents had, or things they said, expressions that our friends said growing up, or that we read in magazines, or sort of a lot of the unspoken messaging that gets passed on, especially to women and powerful women, right? Like, speak when spoken to, and don't be too emotional, and you're so sensitive. Like, these things that kind of have an implication of judgment, and if growing up they came from authority figures, or in adulthood they come from perceived authority figures, or like sources of value and status, then we're going to believe them. We're going to wear them, if you will, as though, but it's pretty random. It's like being handed clothing when you walk into a secondhand store and you're like, oh, this has to fit. And if it doesn't fit, then I'm a bad person. Like, you wouldn't think that, right? You wouldn't believe that. So there's that quality. And then there's also the fact that a lot of the thoughts we think come from we are meaning-making machines. And that's what humans do really well. And if you're if you've ever taken a personality index and you know that you are a relationship-oriented person, you're a strategic thinker, you're a visionary thinker, you're imaginative, you're creative, I'm all of these things. And my clients typically are too. And the challenge of that is that you are very good at making meaning. All humans make meaning all the time, but you are great at making up stories. And Brene Brown uses this phrase, the story I'm telling myself, the stories we tell ourselves, because we're constantly telling ourselves stories. This is what mindset work is often about. Mindset work is exploring the stories that you are consciously or unconsciously, typically unconsciously, telling yourself that are just running as a narrative in your mind. It's mindset. What's your mindset? What's the thermostat? What's the setting of your mind, right? What is it set to? And that is these meanings that we've given things that we've experienced throughout our life cause us to believe certain things are true about the world, whether or not they're actually true. So it's important to examine your thoughts and not just wear whatever is handed to you or whatever you've made up. Like if you had trauma growing up, which pretty much everybody has in some degree, to some degree in various situations, whether it's capital T trauma or little t trauma, it doesn't really matter. You made up a meaning about that. Like something happened to you that made you feel unsafe, and you derived all this meaning about the world from it, and about people from it, and about yourself from it, because you're just trying to make sense of the world. And so it's another place your thoughts come from. So, okay, thoughts. Can't always trust them. So it's important to not believe everything you think. So here's my number one way to notice if a thought isn't serving you. Because, right, when it's just like running all the time, and I mean, we think thousands, I think it's tens or hundreds of thousands of thoughts a day. So when you're having this constant stream of thoughts, how do you identify a thought amongst like the white noise that isn't working? How can you identify the thoughts that you want to stop thinking and press pause on? Start with the ones that make you feel ashamed. I find that shame is a reliable litmus test of a thought that isn't working for you. So there's a lot of ways to know a thought isn't working for you, but I think as a self-indicator, right? Like I'm not coaching you in this moment. So as you're coaching yourself, look for what makes you feel like hot garbage. Look for what makes you feel barfy about yourself. Look for what makes you say like, I am unworthy or unlovable. Because that's often a sign of like a personalized thought, likely untrue. You know, you can receive critical feedback. You can be told that something you do doesn't work for someone else, and you can choose to change your behavior, but none of that has to impact your sense of self and how worthy you think you are, how lovable you think you are. So it's like shame is something that tends to, first of all, wants to be kept quiet, and that is really toxic. So it'll cause you to not want to challenge it because it'll tell you you're so bad. It's a lot like white supremacy in that it and systems of oppression in that it thrives in darkness. And so when we don't call out racism, for example, it's just like not calling out the shaming stories. And obviously when you talk about your shame, you want to do it in a safe space with a person you trust or people you trust. That's a whole other conversation, but just suffice to say, if you're thinking a thought that makes you feel like hot garbage, then it's probably worth challenging that thought. It's probably a thought you don't want to think is true just because you're thinking it. So what do? If you are, you're like, great, okay, I can't trust my own thoughts. What the hell? How do I navigate life? How do I navigate anything? How do I make decisions if I can't trust what I think, right? And that was when I was thinking about this video, I was like, oh my God, that is like the number one thing that came up from my brain was like, how are people supposed to live their lives if they can't trust what they think, right? Because I'm a very critical thinker. I think we should not believe everything we're told. And when you're an intellectual person, as I am, when your brain takes up a lot of space in your life and you've earned a lot of rewards, right? Like you're likely successful in your career because you got a big brain and you know how to use it. And when that's the case, we put a lot of emphasis and identity baked into our thinking and our thoughts, and like my brain knows everything, and my brain is like my golden ticket, and my brain is like the thing that has won me all the awards and keeps me safe and has all the accolades, and like I'm a good person because of my thoughts and my brain. And so you don't even think to question your brain, and it can be kind of jarring to realize that you're sometimes thinking things that aren't true or aren't true for you or don't work for you. Maybe you could argue that they're true. Maybe it's a what is that, pseudoscience, like where it can't be disproven. You know, you can't necessarily disprove every thought, but you can't necessarily prove every thought either. That doesn't make it true. It's a fallacy. So my wish for you is that when you find a thought that makes you feel ashamed, when you find a thought that isn't working for you, you can still navigate your life. You don't have to like buy into the story your brain might be telling you, that my brain tells me, is like, well, then you can't make decisions and you'll never use your brain again. Like, that's not what we're talking about. what I am offering instead is a holistic approach, meaning a whole self approach to decision making, to leadership, to navigating your life. And you can start really small with this practice and then go really big. I work with clients on implementing it in their business. So that's a very specific that's a very specific application of this, right? Like, what tasks do you want to delegate? What systems do you need to put in place? Do you want to expand your team and hire a new person? What kind of marketing collateral might you want to build out now? How are you going to generate your next clients? How do you want to take better care of your current clients? Oh, and by the way, like, how's your health? How are you feeling? What could give you more ease and flow at work? Like, what are the particular people problems that you need to solve this week? Like, all of these things are just like navigating your job, basically, as an entrepreneur, and then growing your business for the long term. What long-term goals do you want to set? What is the mission for your business? All of these questions. Like, if you can't trust your thoughts, how can you answer them, right? Well, I have an answer for you. Don't worry. When you use a holistic approach, that just means you involve things in addition to your brain. So I want to offer you three. Your mind, of course, but also your heart/body and your spirit/soul. And so let me tell you a little more about this. Essentially, it's important that you don't only focus on your thoughts, you also focus on your feelings and I think what I'll call higher consciousness. And by higher consciousness, I really mean, so you have your thoughts, you have your feelings, which also reside in your body, but like, let's look at your heart. So you have thoughts, feelings, and then your higher consciousness, which is the awareness that lands for you when you are in a peaceful, meditative, more like a flow state, when you're in calm, conscious awareness. Those three factors taken together can give you really rich information and a more complete picture about what is true and false and what you want and what brings you joy and what's going to work for you. When I'm working with clients, I typically start by saying, let's think about what your ultimate end goal is for both your business and your life. What is that vision that really lights you up? What brings you tremendous pleasure and joy when you think about it? And when you're in that state, how do you feel? What is it like? What does it feel like? And you can do that exercise for yourself. You can say, like, how do I want to feel? And if you think about how you want to feel, then you can sort of work backward and think about what thoughts you want to think to help you feel the way you want to feel. And that is actually, so there's a really phenomenal practice coined by Brooke Castillo, who's a very well-known mindset coach. She has a book called Self-Coaching 101, which I always recommend. But if you just go to the website, I think it's a life coach school. She has a mapping out of this 5-part thought work framework that you can use to map out your thoughts versus your feelings. But essentially my recommendation is just going to be bring all 3 parts into the mix. Bring your thoughts and your feelings and this higher consciousness, this spirit, soul. Check in with all of those, really. And when you're thinking a thought that doesn't work for you, you've identified that doesn't work for you, you probably are going to want to tune, especially if we are talking about shame, you're going to want to like calm your feelings, because that's a pretty heavy, dense feeling. So I always like hands over heart. I've led workshops on this, so I can always go deeper. If you have questions or comments, drop them so that I can answer them. But hands on heart to calm that fight or flight that tends to come up, that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, and get out of your I always confuse parasympathetic or sympathetic nervous system. Get out of the nervous system and into the calm nervous system. So you're going to want to tend to your feelings in that way. But then once you're calm, check in with spirit, with higher consciousness, with the force of unconditional love that you are connected to, that I'm connected to, that we're all connected to. Check in with that vibe. And hi, Sarah. Hello. I'm about wrapped up here, so I'm talking about thoughts, how you can steer your life if it's not just through your thoughts. And so I'm offering a 3-part sort of holistic opportunity instead, which is thoughts, mind, but also feelings, heart, feeling sensations in your body, what feels good, what feels expansive versus what feels contractive and tight and scary. And then higher self, spirit, soulful consciousness, connectedness to all things unconditional love. If you have a spiritual practice, then maybe you call it God or maybe you call it the divine, but it's really important that you know, I mean, your inner sort of sanctity, not in like a weird, pure way, like in a, not like in a weird virginal way, like in a, that place of calm awareness where you know that you are whole, you know that you are complete, you know that you are a force for goodness in the world. Bringing that in to all of your decision making, especially the big stuff, is like the magic secret sauce. And so that's what I do all the time with my coaching clients. So I hope this is helpful. I've covered a lot. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them. I'm just taking a look to see. Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is, as you are kind of going through this process of not believing everything you think, don't give yourself a hard time if things don't always feel good. Like this is a subtle nuance that develops over time. And if you have this, like if you've been in this practice of mindset work for a while, you'll know what I'm talking about. But essentially, I think there's this idea that if we just perfect, if we just get perfect enough in our personal development, or we just get perfect enough in our thought work, or we're just like disciplined enough in the way we think, or we just have a most amazing mindset forever, then like life is nothing but joy and like laughing through fields and meadows and whatever. And like that's just not true. So sometimes things are just hard, and they make you cry, and they make you angry, and they make you act like a jerk, and like just, it's life, and that's okay. But I want you to know that when you're in it, like give yourself the grace that you can be human, that you, as you grow, there will be times where things are uncomfortable, because it's gonna be uncomfortable because you're not used to it. I've done this whole other thing about this. But generally, yeah, don't believe everything you think. Trust yourself, trust your higher self, trust your body. Bring those intuitive, creative, physical sensations into your decision-making process. And along the way, as you learn to navigate from this more holistic space, I think you will find that growth can actually be really fun. And it can be a lot more joyful and more fun than we're used to. So this has been very high level. If you have a specific situation or thought or circumstance that you are grappling with and you would like my support, I would love to support you in a future video or comment. So just drop. If you have any questions or specific situations I can support you with. But for now, don't believe everything you think, especially if it makes you feel ashamed. The truth is, you are inherently lovable, worthy, whole, complete, creative, magnificent, powerful, and the world needs you. The world needs you showing up from that place, so don't buy into the bullshit. Okay, I hope you're great, and I will talk to you soon.